But first, I want to ask you why you're not more upset about the high-speed rail. Thing continues. It's burning through money like crazy. Nobody seems to be protesting or going crazy. And I'd love to hear, are you okay with it, just burning through money for a project that probably will never be realized? Or if it is realized, it will never meet the standard that we were promised. So right off the bat, there's a problem with that with the bond issue, that we were promised that it would have to achieve a certain trip time, with 2 hours and 40 minutes, okay, from L.A. to San Francisco. Well, to make you feel good, they just did a computer simulation, and you're not going to believe it. The computer simulation came in at just under 2 hours and 40 minutes. Isn't that a shock that they somehow figured out how to do that? So I'd like to hear, A, do you believe that? And B, why aren't you out with signs protesting? They're burning through your money, your kids' money. Stuart Flashman joins us. He is an environmental land use and elections attorney based in Oakland, California, who has sued repeatedly to try and stop high-speed rail based on the fact that we were sold a bill of goods in the bond. And good morning, Mr. Flashman. How are you?
Good morning. Great. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, because I go crazy with the high-speed rail. In the sense that I talk about a lot of BS on this show. Lots of stories all day long of BS. This is right up there with the biggest BS ever. And it's costing us money. And when I saw that they just did this computer simulation, and unbelievably, they showed the bullet train is 3 minutes and 10 seconds inside the legal mandate. But when you read about how you do a computer simulation, they can make it say just about anything they want. And what we're assuming now, the funniest thing is, think about you're in your car now going 80 miles an hour. Think about how fast that is, right? 80 miles an hour is pretty cooking. To meet the time in the computer simulation, this train is going to have to go through intersections and what do they call them? Where they have the traffic is stopped, where at 110 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Plus, it's going to have to go through other communities at, ready for this, 220 miles an hour.
220. That's what they said. Right through the middle of Fresno.
Fresno at 200. It's a rocket is going through you at 220.
It's imagine like you're living right next to a runway and an airplane's taking off.
Unbelievable.
A jet airplane.
So
the noise is going to be unbelievable.
It's such big BS. I also read one expert. I wish I had it a couple months ago. That said high-speed rail, when it's going that fast, if there's any deviation in the track or any turns or glitch, it's a disaster because it's got to be. So I'm reading this thing, a curve that allows a train to operate at a speed of 220 miles per hour would have a circumference of more than 50 miles were to make a complete circle. Yeah. So this thing, and one more thing before I ask you where we're at this point. The Japanese, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it Shinkansen? Is that the name of the train?
That's it.
Okay, yeah. So the Shinkansen is the world's high-speed train that everybody hopes to achieve. It does 344 miles in 2 hours and 22 minutes, right? It's the fastest, it's the best, it's the one everybody wants to emulate. Ours is going to go 438 miles at 2 hours and 40 minutes. So it's going to beat every high-speed rail in Asia, in Europe, in history. And we haven't even started to burrow through mountains yet and fault lines.
Yeah.
So tell me where we are with this, Stuart, because it's
fantasy land. It belongs in Disneyland along with the monorail. It is truly fantasy land. There is no way. I've got the simulation in front of me. I downloaded it. The L.A. Times had gotten the simulation from a public records request, and they put it up on their website so I could download it. And we. As you recall, as you mentioned, I've been litigating on this for quite a few years now, unfortunately,
sure.
Since 2011, and actually even before that. But in the previous lawsuit, we raised the same issue about the trip times, that they were promised 2 hours and 40 minutes from San Francisco to L.A. and 30 minutes from San Francisco to San Jose. And they are claiming they can meet both of those, and they've got these simulations. And as you say, these simulations, you can show anything you want in the simulation. These simulations show their rail line running through the Tehachapi's and going downhill on the Tehachapi's at 220 miles an hour. Now, You know what happens when you go downhill on a railroad at 220 miles an hour?
Everyone dies. Everyone dies. Everyone dies.
Casey Jones. It's Casey Jones. Gosh, we're behind. We got to make this 2 hours and 40 minutes. We'll step on the throttle and to hell with everything. And that's where.
Hey, folks, we got to lose a couple of you. Just announce, hi, we're going to be dying on the other end of the attributes, but the good news is we're going to make it to the other side.
We'll make it on time, right?
So how do it's such big BS that we're laughing. It's such nonsense. Why can't you stop it? Why can't we stop it?
We're still working on it. I mean, we got partway there with the last lawsuit. Basically, what the judge ended, Judge Kenney, ended up saying at the end of the lawsuit, he says, well, you know, this sure looks bad for them. This doesn't look like they're going to be able to make the 2 hours and 40 minutes or the 30 minutes. But they haven't fully defined what their route's going to be. And until they fully define what their route's going to be, I can't definitively say that they won't.
So wait, so their act, the way that they're making us keep paying executives, paying construction companies, is by not revealing a whole plan because we haven't.
Hiding the ball.
But if I said I'm just not determining the final plan yet, I can still take a salary of hundreds of thousands of dollars, pay engineers.
You can still spend off all this money, and they're spending literally billions of dollars of bond funds.
All right, so how far into it are we? How much have we spent already?
I think overall we've spent somewhere around $3 to $3.5 billion.
Unbelievable.
That's not small change. Just think about how many affordable housing homes you could build with $3.5 billion.
Well, you got a homeless issue, you got school issues, you got all these other issues.
You got all of these places where money could really be used.
So, Stuart, let me ask you this then. Why, if the bond issue is a lie, if I present a bond and I say I will do something, and it's obvious they're not going to do something.
You're not supposed to be able to do it.
Yeah, so. And
there are cases that say, there was a case way back in the 1920s where they issued a bond to go from point A to point B in Sonoma County. And when they started figuring out the details, it turned out they couldn't get from point A to point B. They could get about 2/3 of the way. And so they says, well, 2/3 is better than nothing. So they started going ahead to try and spend, and they got sued. And this went to the California Supreme Court, and the California Supreme Court says, no, you promised the road from A to B. You didn't promise them a road to as far as we can get. You promised from A to B. If you can't do A to B, you can't spend this money. And that's what we are litigating right now. And in fact, what happened, this was about 2 years ago, in 2016, our lovely legislature passed a bill to change the bond language. The bond language says you have to, when you build a segment, it has to be suitable and ready for high-speed train operation. Now, what would you think that means?
That it should be ready. That has to be ready for high-speed train. I mean,
you've got to basically, you put a high-speed train on it, and you can go ahead and press the button, and off it goes.
Right.
Well, that's not what they're saying now. The legislature came in and said, no. That's not what it meant. What it meant was that it's either ready to be used by high-speed rail now, or at some time in the future when we do some more work. But in the meantime, as long as it can be used by conventional rail, it's fine.
So the fact is, on every level, the other thing is, when you approach a certain distance, and you take this into consideration in the beginning, you're now competing with airline. At 400-something miles, you're competing with airline. And the thought is that
they had to meet that 2 hours and 40 minutes in order to be competitive with the airlines.
So, Stuart, wait, so they can just lie? They can lie to everybody. Small children can look at this thing and say this is a complete it's just nonsense. I mean, I'm sure somebody sat in the room, Stuart, and went, wow, we're 3 hours and 10 minutes. What do we have to Mickey? Okay, take that out, move that, let's say this. So they're punting to make this fantasy project go through like you said, they're into $3 billion. But we don't even know at this point. We're at $77 billion. We don't know if this is $100 billion. We don't know if this is going to get finished. We don't know.
People I've talked to who know this stuff say it's at least $100 billion.
Okay, and they haven't started digging into mountains. And everything they're doing, the phrase is, it's never been done before. So they're pulling this all out of their butt. We know the ridership numbers are going to be down. We know that they can't really do this.
I mean, when you're talking about a train that runs from Madeira to Shafter, I mean, how many people are going to take a train that runs?
So, Stuart, so the
how many
point is,
people can even find those on the map?
so have they just bought themselves time again with this? And I'll say it. It looks like a bogus computer simulation. They just
it's the same one they did 3 years ago, basically.
I don't get it.
Furthermore, they're saying, oh, well, we don't really have to go to the Transbay Terminal in San Francisco. We're going to stop at the Caltrain station that's about 1.33 miles south of that.
But even the fact, Stuart, that they've got to share tracks, ground level tracks, with commuter trains between San Jose and San Francisco. Are they going to be going 110 miles an hour next to commuter trains? What are we talking about?
Well, that's what they say they're going to do. I don't know how they're going to do it. They're going to go. Supposedly, they're going to be going whizzing through Caltrain stations at 110 miles an hour while there's passengers waiting on the train tracks, waiting next to the train tracks for the Caltrain trains, and here comes this other train zooming through 110 miles an hour.
Nice thing is commuters won't have to dry their hair. They can just stand at the platform and let the train drive. I love, I went on an Amtrak train, the auto train, because I did some advertising for them down in Florida, and people come out at night and they watch the train. It's a big deal for the train go by. It'd be great for them to come out and watch a 220 miles an hour train go by, right?
Oh yeah, you could. The dust will kill you.
It's unbelievable. So, Stuart, how do we get? What does it take to stop it? What does it take to go to a judge and say?
We are working on it. It's been very frustrating, I have to say. I mean, we filed a lawsuit based on that. Remember, I told you they said, "Oh, suitable and ready doesn't mean suitable and ready."
Yeah.
Well, back when they approved that and started going ahead with that, we filed a lawsuit. This was back at the end of 2016, and we have been fighting to get a court date to litigate that issue, just that issue, because if they lose that issue, they can't spend the bond funds that they're spending right now, because none of the things they're building right now is suitable and ready for high-speed train operations.
Well, let me ask you another thing, too. We were trying to get an audit done, and they were denying the audit. They finally got an approval to do an audit. When will we know what that audit will yield?
Well, don't hold your breath. And don't hold your breath about what that audit will show.
But why is it? Why is it the taxpayer? Everybody listening now has a vested interest in this. We're spending our money. I get up in the morning and I work, and they're taking a piece of my paycheck for this. So you got a gun to my head, and you're saying
we're going to be paying for another 20 years.
But you're putting a gun to my head, and you're saying you're going to keep spending, and we have no obligation to show you. This is why people are upset. This is why people are upset with government. They are taking our money, and they refuse to let us see what they're doing with it.
You want to hear something? My wife, who's a physician, she has been for about 20 years a major advocate for single payer. She believes that really is the way to go until she started seeing what's going on with high-speed rail. And now she's saying, I don't trust the government to do single payer.
By the way, you married a doctor. Your parents must have been. Anyway, so that's not a bad thing. I'm looking at this. I don't even know where to go because they're not going to get federal money. The audit, like you said, wow, it's our money. They're taking it, and they're not obligated to give us an audit in a timely manner.
There is, I don't know. When the new general manager there, Brian Kelly, came in, he came in and says, "Well, I'm a new broom. I'm going to sweep clean. I'm going to show transparency and honesty. We're not going to do any more of this lying." Well, they are doing all this lying still, and I guess that the time has come for him to put up or shut up, to basically tell these people, either you're telling the truth or you're history, and he should be firing half the people on the staff there.
Except that we don't even know we don't know what's going on, other than the fact that they haven't bought all the land that they need. They don't have the money to do it. It'll never do these speeds. We never know when it's going to be completed. We don't know what problems are going to hit when they hit the mountains.
The most laughable thing they're doing is because they've got this AB 1889, they're spending money to change single grade crossings to grade separations in places where there is not planned to be high-speed rail for 25 years.
So here's the deal.
There's a place south of L.A., in the southern part of L.A., where they're changing a grade crossing to a grade separation. They're spending $50 million, and there's no high-speed rail plan there until the
Stuart, it doesn't matter. They can do what they want. Apparently, if we can't get an audit, and you sign a bond, and you just sign over billions of dollars and future debt, why should...
The moral of the story is never vote for bonds.
I'm telling you what, I won't again. With this bait and switch...
I've gotten to that point where I'm starting to say, you know what? this sounds like a good deal, but I'm not going to vote for it.
It's just handing them a paycheck, man. It's unbelievable. You know what we could do, though, I thought? With assisted suicide, we could put people on the 220-mile-an-hour downgrade. So everybody in the country wants to do assisted suicide, put them on the train going downhill the Tehachapi at 220, and you got a combo deal. Yeah, I'm never voting for another bond. They have. I see what your wife has just said about single payer. They have worn us down, and the fact that you have to fight this hard on something that looks, and I use the word looks like fraud. It looks like fraud. It's deceptive. It's deceptive. I don't know any other way to put it.
Back in that, I told you about that case in the 1920s.
Yep.
And what the Supreme Court said on it was, this is fraud on the voters.
Well, it is fraud. You told us you were going to do something. Yep. And this is not even close on so many levels, and yet look at the protection they have, that a lawyer approaching this can't shut it down, even though you keep coming up against misrepresentation after misrepresentation. But I had to check in. I hadn't talked to you in a while. I saw this computer simulation, and as soon as I stopped shaking,
we now finally do have a court date at the end of October.
At the end of October.
At the end of we got that date in April, and that was the earliest we could.
End of October means 3 more months of spending, means it could be another $500 million.
Well, and then the other thing was, we had, as part of our complaint, a claim for, we wanted to ask them, said, shut this down because it's illegal expenditures and you should be able to stop and block illegal expenditures. That part of the lawsuit got thrown out.
Well, I thank you for proceeding. Stuart Flashman is an environmental land use and elections attorney. I'm married to a doctor, obviously. It's facebook.com/StuFlash. Check it out, unless you're okay with this, unless you're okay in spending money, and you don't even know what you're spending it on at this point, right? You just said $50 million over here. They're just deciding because they're not being scrutinized. And the new guy, lack of transparency, and this model is a joke. The computer simulation is a huge joke. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate you staying in the fight, man.
Keep your fingers crossed. Maybe we'll be able to come back at the end of October and tell you we finally won something.
It would be a great thing, but I think, as your wife put it, everything's so suspect these days. We're lied to so often.
Yeah, it's sad.
The next bond issue, there's no way. There's no way, because they're going to misrepresent what they're doing with the money, and why give it to them. So you take it easy, Stuart.
Sure.
Talk to you again soon. And you, 800-22...